History isn't written by the victors, it's written by the men who survived the massacre and have enough blood-stained cash to hire a professional ghostwriter. New York City, the air at 26 Broadway, doesn't smell like progress anymore. It smells like gasoline and pure, unadulterated hatred. Behind the granite walls of the Standard Oil building, John D. Rockefeller Jr., the crown prince of the world's wealthiest dynasty, is a prisoner outside. A mob of 5,000 people is screaming for his head. They aren't just protesters, they are a funeral procession for the American dream. Why? Because a few weeks earlier, in the dust of Ludlow, Colorado, Rockefeller's private army didn't just break a strike. They turned a colony of tents into a crematorium. 11 children and 2 women were suffocated and burned alive in a hole in the ground, while Rockefeller's thugs cheered and looted what was left of their lives. The world called him a genocidal plutocrat. The headlines called him a child killer. For the first time in human history, $1 billion wasn't enough to buy silence. The empire was one spark away from a total, violent collapse. The Rockefeller name was becoming a curse. But then, a man with cold, reptile-like eyes walked into Rockefeller's office. His name was Ivy Lee. He didn't bring an apology. He brought a blueprint for the greatest lie ever told. He was about to prove that if you own the story, you can hide the bodies under a mountain of gold. To understand the sheer scale of this deception, you have to understand the man. Rockefeller Jr. was a creature of habit, isolated by immense, crushing wealth. He inherited an empire worth $1 billion, approx. $31 billion today. He thought he was a god. He thought he could command the tide to stop. But Ludlow showed him that even gods can bleed if the people are angry enough. The Rockefeller name was radioactive. No one wanted their money. No one wanted their charity. The brand was death. Enter Ivy Lee. Lee was a failed journalist who realized a terrifying truth: facts are fragile, but perception is indestructible. He charged Rockefeller a retainer of $1,000 a month, approx. $31,000 today, just to be his shadow. Lee's first move was a masterclass in gaslighting. He invented the press release. Before Ivy Lee, companies just stayed silent when they committed crimes. Lee did the opposite. He flooded the newspapers with fact sheets, but they weren't facts. He told the public that the miners in Colorado were foreign agitators and revolutionaries. He claimed the women and children died because of an overturned stove, not because his guards opened fire with machine guns. He didn't just lie, he created a new version of reality. He began bribing editors, buying off columnists, and ensuring that every time a reader opened a newspaper, they saw a different side of the story. He created the idea that there are 2 sides to a massacre. But Lee knew that ink wasn't enough to wash away the smell of charred flesh. He looked at the Prince of Oil and gave him a suicidal order. You have to leave your palace. You have to go to the site of the murder. You have to look those widows in the eye, and you have to pretend to be human. September 1915, Rockefeller Jr. steps off his private train into the desolate, windswept plains of Colorado. The tension is so thick, you can taste the iron in the air. He is walking into a camp of men who have nothing left to lose, men who saw their daughters die in the flames. He paid for it. No guards are allowed near him. It's the most dangerous part of Lee's performance. As Rockefeller walks toward the crowd, a tall, scarred miner steps forward. His hand is buried deep in his rugged, dirty coat. The press cameras are frozen. The Secret Service is miles away. The man pulls something out and moves directly toward Rockefeller's chest in 5 seconds. The most powerful bloodline in America will either end in a pool of blood or be reborn as a lie. The man didn't pull a weapon, he pulled out a hand, and Rockefeller took it. It was the most expensive handshake in history. Under Ivy Lee's precise, theatrical coaching, Rockefeller didn't just visit for an hour, he stayed. For weeks, he ate the thin, watery stew of the miners in their dark shacks. He slept in the same cramped quarters where the families mourned. He even participated in a town dance, twirling the widows of the men his company had murdered. Every single authentic moment was captured by photographers Lee had personally hired and positioned. The next morning, the American public woke up to a different Rockefeller. He wasn't the beast of Ludlow anymore. He was Johnny Rock, the humble, misunderstood philanthropist who just wanted to hear his workers' hearts. It was a psychological lobotomy on a national scale. While the public was distracted by these sentimental photos, Lee was building the ultimate shield, the Rockefeller Foundation. They began pouring millions into medicine, science, and education. It sounds noble, but look closer. Every library built was a brick in a wall to hide the graves of Ludlow. Every medical breakthrough was a distraction from the industrial slaughter in the mines. Lee proved that if you give the public a hero to cheer for, they'll stop looking for the victims. But the horror didn't end there. Lee took these same techniques, the same mass manipulation, the same creation of alternative facts, and eventually began advising companies like IG Farben in Nazi Germany. He became known as Hitler's press agent. The tools used to clean Rockefeller's hands were the same tools used to build the most dangerous propaganda machine in human history. The legacy of Ludlow wasn't just a cleaned-up image. It was the birth of the modern lie. Today, when you walk past Rockefeller Center, in the heart of Manhattan, you see gold, you see art, you see the pinnacle of human achievement. You don't see the blood. Ivy Lee's magic trick was a total success. He didn't just fix a reputation, he created the world we live in now. A world where corporations have values, where billionaires are visionaries, and where the truth is just a commodity you can buy, edit, and delete at will. Ludlow is no longer a crime scene. It's a footnote, a forgotten expense in a billion-dollar ledger. We are all the Cashualties of this new reality. We believe the stories they tell us because they spent a century making sure. We forgot how to look for the truth behind the curtain. Remember, in the game of power, the greatest casualty isn't a human life, it's the memory of what actually happened. Because if they can make you forget the crime, they never have to pay for it, and they haven't paid not a single cent. Cashualties, the price of the lie, is the world you see outside your window.